This should work. A large herbivore, social, visually familiar, built on 4 legs with teeth made for grass and a digestive system optimized for patience. This should be one of the easiest bodies to integrate into human control. But it doesn't, and it never really has. The animal in question is the zebra, and the failure here is not cultural, not historical, not a lack of effort. It is biological. From the first seconds of contact, something is already wrong. The zebra's nervous system operates at a baseline that most mammals only reach in moments of immediate danger. Heart rate elevated, sensory processing wide open, motor response primed for escape before interpretation finishes. This is not fear as a reaction. This is fear as a default setting. In evolutionary terms, the system is expensive, inefficient, and constantly close to overload, and yet it persists. Zebras live in open environments where hesitation equals death, where predators are visible from far away, but close the distance faster than calculation allows. Over time, selection did not favor learning, curiosity, or tolerance. It favored immediacy. Reflex over reasoning, motion over assessment. The result is an animal whose body treats restraint itself as a threat. Musculature fires explosively, not smoothly. Stress hormones spike faster and remain elevated longer than in domesticated relatives. Neural pathways that might soften repeated exposure never fully downshift. From the outside, this looks like stubbornness or aggression. From the inside, it is a system refusing to ever feel safe. Domestication requires slack, a margin where mistakes do not immediately kill. Zebras evolved with none. Every interaction is processed as potentially terminal, even when it isn't. Over generations, this produces an organism that cannot be trained without breaking something fundamental. And when that breaking occurs, the body does not adapt. It collapses. Injuries escalate, stress-related illnesses compound, reproduction falters. The zebra does not bend gradually. It either remains wild or fails entirely. This is why history is full of attempts to ride them, harness them, stable them, and abandon them. The cost is too high, not to humans, but to the animal itself. What looks like refusal is actually protection of an internal balance that has no buffer zone. The zebra survives by never relaxing, by never assuming safety, by treating the world as perpetually unfinished and hostile. This is not an optimized design for comfort or longevity. It is a design tuned to last just long enough, under constant threat, without ever powering down. A body like this should burn out. A mind like this should fracture under its own stress load. And yet, across millions of years, it holds together. Not because it is stable, but because instability itself became the stable state. The stripes should not matter. High-contrast black and white bands do not blend into grass, do not erase an outline against the horizon, do not make a large animal disappear in open sunlight. By classical definitions of camouflage, this pattern fails. And yet it persists, rigidly conserved across species, as if removing it would collapse something deeper than appearance. The paradox is that the stripes are not meant to hide the zebra from the world. They are meant to fracture how the world processes it. Predators do not see the savanna as a photograph. Vision is motion, edge detection, contrast, and prediction under time pressure. When a zebra moves, the alternating bands generate conflicting signals about direction and speed. Limbs overlap, outlines dissolve, bodies refuse to resolve into a single trackable target. In a herd, this effect compounds. Individual trajectories blur into visual noise, forcing the predator's brain to guess instead of calculate. That hesitation is small, measured in fractions of a second. But in a chase, that delay is survival. This is not invisibility. It is interference, a biological way of injecting error into another organism's perception pipeline. The pattern works precisely because it is harsh and unnatural, because it overloads systems evolved to detect smooth gradients and continuous forms. At the same time, the stripes impose costs. High contrast absorbs and reflects heat unevenly. The skin beneath experiences micro-variations in temperature, constant, unresolved. There is no single thermal equilibrium. The body never fully settles. Once again, the zebra trades comfort for function. The pattern does not optimize rest. only continuation. It is a visual solution that behaves like a glitch, surviving not because it is elegant, but because it destabilizes others faster than it destabilizes itself. In evolutionary terms, this is a dangerous strategy. It assumes the predator will always be the one to fail first, and yet, generation after generation, that assumption holds. The stripes remain, not as decoration, not as signal, but as a reminder that survival does not require beauty or efficiency, only that someone else makes a mistake before you do. The stripes are often explained as a defense against predators, but that explanation quietly misses the more uncomfortable pressure shaping this body. Lions kill quickly. Infection kills slowly. In the savannah, it is not the visible attacker that extracts the highest long-term cost, but the small, persistent ones that feed without resistance and leave damage behind. Blood-feeding insects do not just steal energy. They transmit parasites, bacteria, protozoa, systems that erode survival over weeks and months, not seconds. For an animal already operating with no safety margin, that slow drain is catastrophic. This is where the stripes become less symbolic and more mechanical. Many biting flies rely on polarized light and smooth visual gradients to land. Zebra stripes disrupt those cues. The alternating bands scatter light in conflicting orientations, breaking the signals insects use to identify a viable surface. To a fly, the zebra does not look like a body. It looks like a mistake. Landing attempts drop. Bite rates fall. Disease transmission decreases. The effect is subtle, statistical, unheroic, but relentless. This is evolution responding not to drama, but to accumulation. A single bite is trivial. Thousands are not. The zebra's pattern is shaped by pressure that never announces itself, never charges, never roars. It is shaped by organisms that win by persistence. The unsettling part is what this implies about priority. The stripes are not primarily about avoiding death in a chase. They are about avoiding being slowly dismantled while still alive. The zebra's appearance is optimized against threats most viewers never notice, threats that do not feel cinematic enough to matter, until they do. This is survival tuned against erosion rather than impact. A body engineered to reduce damage it cannot afford to repair, and once again, there is no comfort built into the solution. The stripes do not eliminate insects, they reduce probability. They shave percentages off a losing equation until the balance barely holds. The zebra survives not by eliminating danger, but by making danger inefficient, a strategy that feels fragile, incomplete, and yet remains brutally effective in an environment where perfection is neither possible nor required. The stripes do something else that is harder to see and easier to dismiss because it does not behave like a clean adaptation. It behaves like a side effect that refused to disappear. Black absorbs more heat. White reflects more. On a zebra's body, these bands sit centimeters apart, forcing adjacent regions of skin into different thermal states under the same sun. In most mammals, this would be a problem. Uneven heating creates inefficiency, internal stress, wasted energy. This system should destabilize circulation and make temperature regulation harder, not easier. But the zebra does not regulate heat by smoothing gradients. It uses them. The micro differences in surface temperature generate tiny convection currents along the skin. Warm air rises faster from black stripes. Cooler air lingers over white ones. The result is a thin, constantly shifting layer of airflow that never quite settles. It is weak, inconsistent, and incomplete, but it exists. And in an environment where standing still means overheating, even weak airflow matters. The zebra does not cool itself efficiently, it prevents itself from failing too quickly. Blood flow beneath the skin mirrors this unevenness, redistributing heat in a pattern that never reaches equilibrium. The body exists in a state of controlled thermal noise. There is no single stable temperature, only acceptable fluctuation. This again violates the expectation of optimization. Engineering favors balance. Biology, under pressure, tolerates chaos if chaos delays collapse. The stripes do not create comfort. They create delay. They stretch survivability minutes further into the heat of the day. enough to keep muscles responsive, enough to keep cognition intact, enough to avoid the cascade where heat stress triggers dehydration, then fatigue, then vulnerability. This solution comes with costs. Energy expenditure increases. The circulatory system works harder. The animal lives closer to its limits. But those limits are already unavoidable. The savanna does not reward efficiency in isolation. It rewards systems that can remain functional while being slightly wrong all the time. The zebra's skin never rests, never equalizes, never resolves into calm. It is constantly correcting small imbalances instead of preventing them. From a distance, the stripes look decorative. At scale, they behave like a thermal disturbance pattern, breaking smooth heat buildup the same way they break smooth visual outlines. The same logic repeats across systems. Do not remove the threat. Do not eliminate the stress. Fragment it. Distract it. Make it uneven enough that no single failure propagates too fast. A body built like this should accumulate errors until it breaks. Instead, it survives by never allowing any one error to dominate. Not stable, just fragmented enough to keep going. At this point, the pattern is clear, and it becomes harder to ignore what is missing. There is no behavioral off switch. Horses, donkeys, even some antelope can downshift under repeated non-lethal exposure. Their nervous systems learn that not every stimulus ends in injury. Zebras do not make that transition. Their stress response does not habituate in the same way. Cortisol remains elevated longer. Startle thresholds stay low. Recovery is incomplete. What looks like temperament is actually architecture. Neural circuits are biased toward immediate action, not long-term recalibration. From a survival standpoint, this makes sense in an environment where a single misjudgment ends the lineage. From a physiological standpoint, it is brutal. Chronic stress erodes immune function, interferes with digestion, suppresses reproduction. Most mammals cannot live like this for long. Zebras do, because the alternative was worse. Evolution did not ask whether this system was healthy. It asked whether it worked often enough, and it does. But the price is constant internal tension. This is why domestication fails at the level of biology, not training. Domestication requires a nervous system willing to accept delayed consequences, to trade immediate vigilance for future reward. Zebras are not wired for that exchange. The cost of being wrong even once was historically too high, so the system never learned to relax. Attempts to override this with restraint or conditioning produce cascading failure. Injuries escalate because the animal does not dampen its response. Stress compounds because there is no baseline to return to. What survives in the wild becomes pathological in captivity. This is not stubbornness. It is an organism defending a configuration that has no redundancy. Remove constant threat, and the system does not heal. It destabilizes. The zebra's mind is not tuned for safety. It is tuned for continuity under threat. That makes it appear uncooperative, even hostile, but the behavior is consistent, logical, and tragically narrow. A nervous system built to never trust cannot be asked to cooperate without breaking the very thing that kept it alive. This is a body that pays for survival with permanent tension, a life lived near physiological redline, where calm is not a reward state but an unknown condition. It should burn out. Many individuals do. As a species, it doesn't. Because in this environment, being slightly broken all the time is safer than being whole and slow even once. There is a temptation to frame all of this as loss. No domestication, no cooperation, no softening over time. But that framing assumes comfort is the evolutionary goal. It is not. What the zebra preserves, at considerable cost, is a form of continuity that refuses external rewriting. Other species traded vigilance for efficiency, traded edge for endurance, accepted new constraints in exchange for stability. Zebras did not. They remained legible only to their own environment. The price is permanent strain, high stress, high injury risk, a lifespan shaped by attrition rather than safety. But the reward is persistence without surrender. The zebra does not adapt to control. It adapts to pressure. Its stripes fracture perception. Its skin fractures heat. Its nervous system fractures calm into readiness. Every system rejects smoothness, rejects equilibrium, rejects rest. This is not an accident. In a world where predators, parasites, heat, and terrain all punish delay, smooth systems fail quietly and completely. The zebra survives by refusing to become smooth. It lives as a collection of compromises that never resolve, a body always slightly misaligned with itself but never long enough for any single failure to take over. That is why it cannot be tamed. Taming requires trust and stability. The zebra evolved in a place where stability was a lie. And so it carries forward a design that looks inefficient, uncomfortable, even broken, but remains intact across deep time. This is not a story about beauty or freedom. It is a story about paying the full biological cost of staying wild. The zebra exists not because it found balance, but because it learned to survive without it. A life with no safety margin, no permission to relax, no moment where the system fully powers down. It should not last. And yet, against an environment that offers no mercy and no guarantees, it does. This should have softened by now. Over millions of years, pressure usually rounds the edges, trims excess vigilance, introduces tolerance where constant alertness becomes too expensive to maintain. Most large mammals eventually trade raw responsiveness for efficiency. Zebras did not, and that refusal has a cost that never disappears. Living without domestication means living without relief. No protected environments, no selective breeding for calm, no reduction in baseline stress. Every generation inherits the same narrow margin, the same permanently elevated readiness, the same inability to safely miscalculate. This is not romantic freedom. It is exposure, continuous and unresolved. Injury rates remain high. Stress-related disorders never vanish. Lifespans are shaped by attrition rather than aging. The zebra does not grow old gently. It wears down, slowly, unevenly, but before collapse. Evolution accepts this trade because the alternative is extinction through softness. What looks like resistance to control is actually resistance to redesign. The zebra's body cannot afford the rewiring that domestication requires. Lower stress would mean slower reaction. Slower reaction would mean death. So the system remains locked where it is, balanced not around comfort, but around immediacy. This produces an organism that is permanently incomplete by human standards. It never optimizes for rest. It never learns to trust stability. Its stripes interfere instead of conceal. Its physiology delays failure instead of preventing it. Its behavior avoids collapse rather than building resilience. And yet, it persists. This is the unsettling truth at the center of the zebra. Survival does not require harmony. It does not require calm. It does not require happiness. It requires remaining functional longer than the environment can dismantle you. The zebra survives by existing in a constant state of near failure, never crossing the line, never pulling back far enough to be safe. A body with no safety margin, held together by fragmentation, noise, and refusal to settle. This system should not last, but in a world that offers no mercy, it does not need to last comfortably, only long enough.